Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Kate, where'd you pick up a guy like that? Yeah, he got attached on the streetcar. I couldn't get rid of him. What's the big deal? Helen kept up with her friend. How can I do him? He's a nice, humble guy. No, wait, I'll think about it. Kate responded immediately. Kevin was really good. He's 28, graduated from college, worked and had his own construction business. He was self-reliant. He looked confidently ahead and he was on his way to his goal. And he got on the streetcar by accident. He'd had his car serviced. He usually took the cab. But here it was as if someone was pushing him into the streetcar. It happens in life. You see a girl, you fall in love. When, after a few meetings, he asked Kate to marry him, she looked at him in surprise. It's a joke, that's for sure. A joke. The girl hoped that after her question the young man would smile and say, of course, darling, I was joking, it's a joke, and immediately clap his hands like a child. But that didn't happen. Instead of the expected words, Kevin repeated his sentence, adding to it, Kate, I love you. Look, the girl was getting angry. You and I just learned each other's names and you're already married. That makes you sound like a non-serious person. I wonder how you managed to work in a business like this. But Kevin was not offended, but like a magician, he took out a beautiful box and once again proposed to Kate. Kate, why are you laughing? A little offended? Asked Kevin. I got into a bad movie, the girl bitterly stated. I get it, said Kevin, closing the box that Kate never picked up. He turned and walked away. The girl was a little stunned. This was not the outcome she had expected. She wanted to run after him, but he was already gone. Now she had to find an excuse to see Kevin for a week. She was angry at everyone. Not at herself, not at her mother, who wanted to help her, herself, without knowing, but at Helen, who offered to mediate a reconciliation. Only after a month she managed to call Kevin. From the surprise of hearing his voice in her throat, a spasm formed in her throat, and slamming her eyes shut, she couldn't get a word in edgewise. He began to say, let's meet at our place today at 7:00 p.m. She nodded, as if Kevin could see it. The young man didn't wait for an answer, but simply added, I am waiting for you. She nodded again and quickly sat down. There was no holding her at all. That it is love with me, the easier woman we love. Again, she asked herself a question. Only she was in no hurry to answer them. Kevin was very worried after that last conversation with Kate. She doesn't love me. He decided otherwise. Where did such caustic taunts come from? Then he went on a business trip to a neighboring state. An interesting project loaded him up, and the guy was able to distract himself from his gloomy thoughts. And now that he was back, he decided to dot all the I's. Though he couldn't stop thinking about this girl. And Kate decided to hide her sarcasm far away and take the matter seriously. The trouble is that Kate Bystrova could not afford to throw away men like Kevin. Seriously rich, in love, and handsome. By today's standards, she should have clung to him hand and foot, and if necessary, her teeth. She was in her 25th year, and there was no clue to get acquainted with her. So she had to think about the future. She decided today to accept Kevin's proposal of marriage. Kate didn't want to think that it might not work out. The girl considered this man as her own and advised Lemke not to open her mouth on someone else's loaf. All week the weather had been terrible. It had been pouring rain and the cold was penetrating. And today, sunshine and a gentle breeze than an unkind sign. She's going to make it. And Kevin would propose to her again. The girl was in a great mood, and even the car, passing by yesterday's puddles and splashing in all directions of water, did not spoil the good mood. At the cafe, she saw Kevin at the far table. Hello, hello. Why are you without flowers? He didn't answer her question. Kate realized that the prey was slipping out of her hands, and gathering her courage, went on the offensive. Kevin, I've been thinking about us all this time, and I realized that I love you, so I accept your marriage proposal. You asked Kevin seriously. His voice was so cold that Kate thought there was no chance. Of course, her eyes were openly looking at him, and they wanted to believe. A silence ensued. Kevin drank small sips of coffee and glanced at Kate. She, too, pretended to be busy with her coffee and occasionally glanced back at her companion. The music in the cafe was quiet. Kevin's glances had a calming effect on Kate. Finishing her brownie, she licked the fire with pleasure, which delighted Kevin to no end. "What are you saying? I just made you an offer." "Cordage," he said her name, stretching each sound as if tasting it. "I was on my way to meet you today to put an end to our relationship. But when I saw you, I realized that I couldn't do it if my Kate wasn't by my side." All he had to do was look into the girl's eyes to drown in them, to forget all his resentments and lose his mind again at the closeness of her. "We're going to meet my parents. They've been wanting to see you for a long time." "Yes. When are you going to meet my mom?" The girl smiled. "What do you say? We could do it right now." But no. Mom must morally prepare for the meeting with the future son-in-law. They left the cafe in an embrace. He opened the car doors in front of the girl and got behind the wheel. Kevin looked at Kate, scrutinizing every feature of her face, stroked her hair, touched her lips, which sent pleasant goosebumps through Kate's body. Her blood rushed inside her, and she pressed herself against him, daring him to respond to the kiss. She felt safe and good next to this man. Wendy, Kate Kevin's mom, liked him. They liked each other immediately. He praised everything she had prepared for the table of their meeting, and she, admiring his courteous ability to listen and hear the culture of behavior. And the main thing that was visible to the naked eye, it was his love for her daughter. The young man was nervous before the meeting, afraid, not like the future mother-in-law. In his head were thoughts of rejection, whence came the insecurity. But it was too late to retreat, and with a smile he handed a huge bouquet to a friendly woman with kind eyes. Kevin noticed that Wendy was holding the champagne glass with both hands when she raised it. It was obvious that she was developing Parkinson's disease. Wendy looked at Kevin, at such a representative tall man, handsome enough and very modest, with adoration. The following evening, Kate had a return visit with Kevin's parents. It was their first meeting, and the girl was a little under-handsome when they entered the apartment. Kevin said loudly, "Mom, Dad, meet Kate." The blue, impenetrable eyes of the mother. The ironic smile sent shivers down the girl's spine. Nasty goosebumps ran, and if one could fall through the ground this minute, she would consider it salvation. Father Kevin James came to the rescue. "Come in, Kate, we're waiting for you," and held out her hand for an introduction. She folded herself from such attention and quietly said hello. She wanted to run away and hide from her mother's penetrating gaze. But she managed to pull herself together and cope with such a difficult situation. The table was beautiful. Everything was top class, with 3 knives, 2 forks, and a dessert spoon near each plate. God, where did all this stuff go? And she placed a napkin in her lap with trembling hands. Kevin was beside her and tried to support her with a look, then shaking hands and even kissing her cheek, which Miranda didn't like. Kate's questions were many, just as she had asked Kevin yesterday, but the girl made it through. When the evening was over, she was happy to leave the apartment. "Kevin, where are we going to live after the wedding?" With a tremor in your voice, Kate asked. "I bought an apartment, and after the wedding we're going straight to it. It's being renovated." "Are you scared of your parents?" "Yeah, your mom." "Don't worry, she's the kindest woman, and I'm always there for her." I kissed her on the temple. He opened the car door, seeing Kate off. Kevin returned quickly, seeing the light in the window. His mother was waiting for him to talk. "Kevin, son, this is not your person. She doesn't love you. This woman is capable of despicable behavior and betrayal. You can tell by the way her eyes run. Mom, she's afraid of you. Who do you want with a fire in the ark? No, son, she's no match for you. I'm begging you, don't marry her. You can just live without getting married now. Get to know her. And if the baby comes out, Mom, is it out of wedlock? Do you really think she's naive? Why would she do that? She's marrying you so she can vacation, enjoy life, and use her money. To be honest, I'd really like to be wrong, because I can see you love it." She was going to add nothing, but she thought it was too much, and she didn't want to offend her son. "Mom, she's beautiful, she's kind. She's a law school graduate. She's a professional. She's 25, which means it's a conscious move. Son, this is her last chance. Stupid. If no one wanted her before she was 25, it's only going to get worse. And here you are, handsome, rich, decent to the point of nausea. You'd have to be a fool not to take advantage of that. So you're telling me you knew her character and her future plans at first sight? I think you're overreacting this time, said the son in a low voice. But really, Miranda supported her son James. Well, you're overreacting. Remember how your mother opposed me? You listen to her. Don't let your son do what he wants to do. Don't push your authority. After saying that, she had no choice but to shut up. But she was used to having the last word. This woman will bring you disappointment because she is not interested in mental qualities. She's a lustful and a bitch. Mom shouted in her heart, Kevin, stop it or we will have a fight. That's it. That's it. I'm leaving. I'll be glad if I'm wrong, she said and closed the bedroom door. A little while later, Kate stood at the window in her room and skinned herself. She could feel what was going on at Kevin's house. Why would her mother turn on her over a complete stranger? She'd never seen me before and didn't know me at all. Kate thought about how to prove to Kevin's mother that she had the best feelings for her son. It was certainly not the first time she had faced injustice. When you haven't done anything yet and you're already guilty of everything, she remembered the look in that imperious woman's eyes that made her flinch. I need to learn to distance myself from all her looks and hurtful words. Turn the shell, so to speak. Good thing we'll be living apart from her, Kate thought and went to bed. Miranda, it had to be said, was a psychologist from God with a long experience. She had her own psychological center where there was a psychologist besides her. She was well known in the city, respected. She took on the most difficult cases without fear and destroyed them. She practiced a science called diagnostics. It was what allowed Miranda to determine a person's character, their personalities, and even the events that had occurred in their life. She had spent years on it to be a top-notch specialist, having said a lot of unpleasant things to her son about his chosen one. She did not feel that she had offended Kevin. It was her responsibility to neutralize those who tried to take advantage of her boy. She knew she was not wrong in what she had said to Kate. It was a shame for her son to fall in love with someone who would not bring him happiness, but let them try. The mother thought sadly as she fell asleep. The next day, Kevin did not call the girl. She was upset and frightened, thinking that Miranda had managed to convince her son that Kate was not right for him. You came, Kate threw herself on Kevin's neck. Of course I came, the man laughed. His was infectious. The laughter echoed throughout the apartment. Kate stood there clapping her eyes, not understanding why he was so amused. And he was amused by the frightened girl. Why shouldn't I have come? He asked, calming down. He drew her to him, kissed her gently, whispered in her ear, why are you so scared? I thought Mommy wouldn't let you come to me anymore. He burst into his story again with his laughter. Mom can only give her opinion. I've been making my own decisions for a long time now. It's good that you are independent, said Kate. In front of him, as if stood a little frightened girl, looking into his eyes, hoping for protection from the terrible mother-in-law. Kate, don't take offense at her. She is a person who is used to controlling everything. Her stamina and determination would be the envy of any man. She's my mother, and I love her very much. But I would never do anything to offend you either. Wanting to reassure Kate, he gently, as if trying to taste, covered such desirable lips with his own. The girl responded to this passionate kiss by pressing herself against her protector. The man confidently put his arm around the girl's waist. What did he get? A pleasant one that spoke of pleasure. Miranda did not return to the conversation with her son again on the subject of his marriage. In the first place, she had nothing to add to what had already been said. And secondly, she did not like to speak into the void, knowing that she was not listened to. She waited patiently for her time. To hear the usual ladies, you were right. This she had heard more than once while doing her job. And what she said to her son was nothing but his future with this girl. The big day of the lovers' lives is approaching. Kevin was busy preparing for the wedding. Kate also had a lot to do. Helen helped her choose her wedding dress. She always had excellent taste, and Kate trusted her. And so Kevin waited at the registry office for his Kate. And as it should be, the groom is nervous. He saw a huge car decorated with flowers from afar. And then everything was as if in slow motion. The car pulled up, the door opened. And first, the groom saw a graceful shoe, carefully lowered to the asphalt. Then a beautiful bride stepped out of it and, smiling, approached her future husband. And Kevin looked at her with open mouth and admired. "You look beautiful. You're a beauty." Kate was over the moon. After all, such an exciting day happens to young people once in a lifetime, and this event will never be forgotten. 5 years had passed. Those who knew Kate would never recognize this simple girl. Kate, she was a smartly dressed woman, driving a red car, a husband's gift to his favorite wife right after the wedding. And from some time talking down to her friend, so much that she stopped visiting her. And now Kate's best friends are diamonds. 6 months after marriage, she told her husband that she was tired of working and wanted a little rest. "What are you going to do?" "Won't you die of boredom?" she asked her husband. "But if I die, I will go back to work. I'll take a little rest for 6 months. Yes, I don't mind. Take care of the house." "I don't need to take care of the house. We're perfect. I'll take care of my health." "Are you in pain? Concerned?" asked Kevin. "Well, let's wait for it to hurt. Sickness should be prevented, not waited for. It's been shown. I'll go to the pool, buy a season ticket, fitness club. But I'll be happy if my wife is healthy and beautiful." That was the deal. But 6 months passed, but there was no desire to work. 5 years passed, and Kate never thought of working. Kevin took care of her, bought vouchers to a resort on the sea. When he could, went with his wife, but sometimes let her go alone, helped Wendy. Annual visits to the sanatorium kept the disease from progressing, and she felt well. "Thank you so much. You're helping me so much, aren't you?" she told him every time. "You don't have to thank me. I'm glad I can help you." Everything would have been fine, but Kate couldn't have kids. They got both tested, and both were healthy. "There's grandchildren you're never gonna give us." Miranda was all broken up about it. "Mom, we have to wait, but we'll make it. We're both healthy." "Yeah, that's understandable. But babies are born out of love, and that's not even in here. I'm surprised at you, Kevin. How can you not see that? She hasn't worked in the house in 5 years. She does nothing. She's an au pair. I think she put someone else in your bed if you'd let her." "Mom, would you stop it? You didn't love her in the first place, and you don't want to change your attitude." "Why should I love her?" "My dear son, everything I told you 5 years ago has almost come true. There's just a little bit left." Kevin agreed with his mother in a way, and angry that she was right again. He was sitting in his office. Any minute now, a meeting on the handover of an important object was going to start. He was looking through the documentation carefully, when suddenly the phone rang. Sweet Kate said with a sigh, "I'm out of money on my card." Heals a little. "Can't be busy right now. I'm getting ready for a meeting. But here is a stipulation that you love. A man should pamper the woman he loves. Only then there will be a happy and family relationship." Kevin grinned, thought that they were spoiling Kate too much, and disconnected the phone. She wanted to continue her sermon, but felt that her husband could not hear her. The man's memories were interrupted by a knock on the door. The staff was going into a meeting. He nodded, inviting everyone to the table. Kate's call had knocked him out of it a little. But knowing how serious this meeting was, he quickly gathered his thoughts and went fully into his work. Everything else was on the back burner for him. Barely crossing the threshold of the house, Kevin felt that there would be no quiet evening. Kate sat there, pouting her lips and defiantly not speaking to him. She hoped that her spouse would ask her, as usual, what had happened to his favorite foot. But he looked at her back and went straight to the shower. And she had everything boiling inside. It was necessary to spill everything out, otherwise she just will not sleep. The woman always put her own interests and desires first. The most disgusting thing is that she was so accustomed to it that to give up everything was like death. After a shower, the husband went to the kitchen. He didn't feel like eating, and he poured himself a glass of water, looked at the night city, remembered the results of the meeting, and they pleased him. When, without waiting for her husband in the room, Kate came to the kitchen, she said loudly, "We need to talk. I'm listening to you." The husband shuddered. I was ashamed today in front of my girlfriends. You just humiliated me by not giving me the money. Kate, you must have learned in 5 years with only an A one word is give, and you've forgotten the word work. Well, I work, and I'll do anything you ask me to do. I just don't have the opportunity, and I don't print money, I earn it. Would you think about what we could change in our closet? Slide the walls apart to fit a new, bigger closet. Or donate half the rags to people in need. Don't you think that's a bit much? Are you reproaching me? Kate asked in surprise. Look, I think that the 6 months you wanted to take a vacation have gone on too long. It's been almost 6 years, and you've been doing all the health and fitness and pool and cafes and restaurants and shopping. I'm not bored. I could put you in our legal department. You'll start earning money. You'll remember the word work. And after an 8-hour day, you'll be less inclined to go shopping and spend that kind of money on rags and rings. I'm done. And don't call me at the office again for nothing. I worked there. That night they had their first fight. She screamed for a long time, calling him a belly. And Kevin, or already in bed, replayed in his head the whole conversation with his wife and her look, which reflected the anger of rage, the desire to scratch his eyes out. If she only knew how hard it was for him to make that speech, because he didn't mean to offend her at all. And the money, damn it, he could have transferred it later, but he forgot. Do you really have to yell like that? Kevin thought. But the most disgusting thing was that his wife always put her interests and desires above all else. And then there's the resentment you get from your wife. He wanted to get up already, to go fix the weather in the house, to put his arms around his beloved, pulling her close to him, to kiss her, to feel those tender lips. But knowing the character, the spouse decided to let her cool down from such a heated conversation. That night she never came to the marital bed, but settled down in a small room, which was once planned as a nursery. In the morning, Kate decided to get up early, hoping that Kevin would apologize to her, as he always did. He lived by the principle if a woman was wrong, apologize to her. But sensing the obvious tension, I also decided to keep you aloof and not look at my husband. Why would he want to show him that I was frightened in yesterday's speech? Thought to herself Kate. For a second their eyes met. There was no anger or resentment in Kevin's eyes, but she didn't see the devoted dog voice either. She didn't know how she'd done it. It just popped out. And she didn't have time to catch the words. I'm sorry about yesterday. I must be tired. It almost rolled off her husband's tongue. A question of what? I wonder if you're tired. But he decided to stop fighting. Come to my office and I'll introduce you to the specialists. The department. And what do you want me to do there? Kate asked angrily, as a cleaner. Have you forgotten everything you learned at school? Then all the more reason to get to work. This is an unforgivable waste of public funds. Already with a smile, said the husband. He left, and she sat and thought that all this time she was fabulously lucky. After all, so much money to shake out of her husband, it still had to be able to. But judging from yesterday's conversation and his suggestion this morning, Kevin had not been very nice to her. A nasty chill ran down her spine. She didn't even want to think about the bad stuff. She didn't feel like going anywhere today, much less her husband's place at work. I don't want to be in front of him all the time, and in such a friendly all-female team. I've already been lucky enough to work once. I don't want to work in a terrarium of gossip and spit. All day she floundered around the house, not daring to go to her husband's office. And he, returning from work, did not wake up such a fear-ridden labor Kate. Something had broken in him during these days, though he himself could not answer the question what it was. He loved his wife so much, wanted her so much as a woman, but he perceived her without fanaticism as the most important one. And that frightened him. In the morning, leaving for work, Kevin wrote a note to Kate. I'll be at the office by 11 o'clock. Then I'll leave for the site. When Kate saw the note, she decided to tell him that she was up late and didn't have time to get to the office. She realized, of course, that it was childish. She would have to go and talk anyway, no matter how much she didn't want to. But having never waited for his wife, Kevin left for the site and afterwards decided to go straight home. The apartment was being cleaned. Betty had kept the house perfectly clean for 6 years, and there was nothing to fault. Everything was shiny and sparkling. and from the kitchen came the most wonderful smells. That's where Nancy was working, formerly a chef, and now they were running the kitchen for good money. He said hello to the women who had become family over the years. He asked when Kate had gotten up. Nancy said she didn't know. And Betty answered exactly at 9 a.m., started cleaning the hall, and she came out of the nursery. "Thank you," Kevin replied and went to his wife, surprised to see her husband at home at this hour. She was confused. "Are you back already?" Kate asked a silly question, but she should have come to her senses. "And why didn't you come to see me today?" "I got up late last night, didn't sleep well, and only managed to get to sleep in the morning." He knew that was how she would justify her absence from his office. "You told me yesterday that a happy family relationship won't be one if a husband doesn't spoil his wife." "Yes, I did." Kate agreed. "I don't think they will be. If the spouses start lying to each other." "What did you ask your wife? You didn't get up at 9 o'clock to come to my place on purpose. I hope you realize you're going to have to come anyway." "What makes you think 9 o'clock is 0? Betty told me." "So you believe her, the old gossip girl?" "I don't believe my own wife. I believe her because she's not a person of interest." "What can't I say about you?" "All right, well, yeah, I got up early and I didn't go to your place on purpose. I don't want to work, you know? I understand. But a lot of free time is bad for you. You're degenerating. You and I have been talking lately about your dresses, your shoes, your gold. Kate, life doesn't end there. You can't give birth. You don't want to. Give me one reason why I should agree with you." Out of his sight, she took a breath and regretted that she had nothing to say. Is it really true? Would she have to go to work again? She could not believe what was happening and wondered at her husband's sudden insistence. She went to the kitchen to get a bottle of water, and as she passed the household helpers, she felt their unpleasant glances. When she returned to the room where Kevin was still waiting for her, she could not find anything to say to him. So she was confused and shocked at her husband's assertiveness. A feeling of resentment and anger against him filled her whole soul, and she found nothing better than to cry. There was not a single thought in her head, so she decided to fill the void with the usual roar. "I don't want to work among women." "Yes, we have a great team." Her husband tried to calm her down. "Is it you as a boss so think that in your collective all brothers and sisters to each other? And do not even allow the thought. How many gorgons and snakes work there? Each one trying to get ahead of the other. I've been there, and don't put me in there. You know how many of these I've seen. But you're not in any danger of that. Everybody knows you're my wife. So it'll be a working relationship, and no one's gonna pry into your soul. You don't want to get a job on your own, but please do something." Kevin stood up abruptly and left the room. He went into his office and plunged into his own thoughts. His wife's attitude pissed him off. Now he was cursing himself for having agreed to go along with her and allow her not to work. Nothing good had come of it. He felt no pity, no remorse, no guilt toward his wife. She, ducking her face into her pillow, sobbed, howled like a child. She had not before had this strife in the women's group, in the small town where she lived with her parents. It was all plain and simple. But in this huge city, it was hard for her at first to get used to it and live according to the laws of the jungle. But in life, you can get used to everything, even this. The next day, when Kevin called from work, he said that he was going on a business trip for 10 days and asked her to pack a suitcase. Kate was glad that at least 10 days will live, quietly buy a newspaper and see what vacancies are available. No, even a few newspapers, so that her husband could see that she was not sitting idle. Kevin did not forget to transfer money to the card for Kate, but the amount was much smaller than usual. Seeing this, the woman puckered her lips and took offense at her spouse again. "What is so little?" she asked her invisible husband. "You can't get much on them." The woman let Betty go for a few days, telling her to come before her husband arrived and cleaned the apartment. And Nancy told her to come back in 2 days. Left alone in the huge apartment, she immediately called her girlfriends who were just as lazy as herself, and they had a blast until their husbands came to pick them up. Kevin called several times from his business trip and arrived unexpectedly 2 days early. There was a persistent odor of alcohol in the apartment. The dishes in the sink didn't fit anymore, and all the rooms were a mess. The time was approaching noon. but Kate was still asleep. Time to get up. Her husband had arrived. She was so frightened she couldn't realize where she was. And then all at once, remembering everything, she realized that she had never bought a newspaper to at least give the appearance of looking for a job. She saw the well-founded anger on his face and felt guilty. 8 days passed quickly, and her husband found her in her nakedness again. "I'm waiting for you in the kitchen," he said sternly and went out, having opened the window in the room. Hearing Kevin's request to come to the kitchen, Kate jumped up like a scalded man and grabbed a robe from the chair and rushed into the shower. Kevin waited patiently for his wife and drank small sips of scalding black coffee. After getting herself cleaned up, Kate entered the kitchen and went straight to the sink to wash the dishes. "You don't have to bother. If you haven't done it in a week, it's not worth it now. Betty and Nancy will be here soon. I called them. The apartment looks like bread. How can you be in such a nightmare? Have some coffee, and when the women arrive, we'll leave so we don't disturb them." Kate nodded in agreement. At her husband's presence, she didn't know where to turn from her shame, and he looked at her without averting his gaze. "I've always wanted a sincere and faithful relationship. If I ever wanted to lie to you, I would have filed for divorce. Do you understand? A husband and wife should have a relationship of trust." I just nodded, though. Agreeing with Kevin on everything, he had a calm, respectful tone that affected her in a strange way. She was ready to agree with every word he said. Nancy and Betty arrived, and Kevin and Kate hurried out of the house. "Let's go to the Victory Cafe and we'll talk." He invited his wife. She, like a Chinese dummy, said nothing but nodded. As soon as they entered the cafe, as Kate felt a terrible hunger in her stomach treacherously sounded. Gut, writing protocols. Hearing the music from her spouse's stomach, Kevin asked. She nodded again. Dim lights, quiet music. Almost homely atmosphere created a calming, still environment, disposed to conversations. Just not the kind of conversations Kevin and his wife wanted to have. A little muffled voice. He asked his wife, "How's the job search going?" "Good, really? It's really coming along." He looked at his wife in surprise. "Yes. I bought newspapers, looked at job vacancies 3 times, and even went for an interview." She dared to raise her eyes to her husband, who listened with interest. "But I was not hired anywhere because of my lack of experience." "So what is good here? If you as a specialist, no one wants you, and you're not a specialist either." "Molly will hire me as a salesman." "At the market." "But no, what? She has a chain of boutiques. I'm going to work at one of them. I know a lot about fashion, about brands. It's all very close to me. I think I could be useful." There is where my husband smiled. My heart froze, and then pounded so fast it could have jumped out. I don't know which store she'll take me to yet, so it's not definite yet. It's not certain that I'll be working for her. I just don't know which store. How many stores does she have? Kevin? I don't know. She looked at him and realized that he didn't believe a word she said. Kevin felt so much negativity coming from Kate that he couldn't help himself to believe her. After they finished their lunch, they walked along the promenade to get some air. Kate even dared to take her husband under her arm. It seemed to her that the conflict was over. Returning home, they met up with a neighbor in the entryway. "It's good to have you back, Kevin, because your wife didn't let us live peacefully. Drinking every day, partying, a house full of guests and music till night. It was only out of respect for you and your parents that we didn't call the police." "I get it, Kelly. Excuse us, please," Kevin said quietly. The man sighed with relief as he entered the apartment, where everything was shining clean. "Kate, you need to pack your things now and go back to your mom's house. I don't want to be an idiot in your eyes or in the eyes of the neighbors. You're lying in a brazen way that you think I'm going to swallow. I'm sick of it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to work, and things will work out between you and me. I love you, and this feeling will help us get everything back," answered the wife, and sharply turned around and went to sleep in the nursery. His words hurt her a little nauseatingly, as if she was asking for this love, as if he had never loved her. There was a wicked fire in her eyes, and it was a frightful state. The woman found some whiskey and drank the remainder straight from the bottle, and the inside burned and divorced pleasantly. The heat was sweating. Suddenly waking up, she realized it was long past midnight, but she didn't feel like sleeping. Kate peeked into her husband's bedroom. His steady breathing could be heard. He was sleeping and having wonderful dreams. Strangely enough, Kate was not in those dreams. There was another woman with him, affectionate, tender, loving. And he could hear his mother's voice from far away. "Son, that's her. She will make you happy. She loves you." Kevin smiled in his sleep and didn't want the dream to end. In the morning, his wife suggested we talk. "Kate, I don't see the point. You're deliberately lying on purpose. That's what you are. The relationship I was so proud of has begun to lose its value. So you're saying they died with fear in their voice?" The wife asked. "No, but they're dying." "Well, they can still be saved. Sometimes you don't have to," said the spouse calmly. "It's enough to just walk away in silence. There's no point in explaining. You know very well what you've done, and I think I have a chance." The woman insisted. He shrugged, drinking his coffee. "I'm leaving on a business trip today. I'll be gone for 2 weeks. I think that's a good thing. Go to your mother's and stay with her for a while. I think we both need to weigh things up and come to one decision. We can't live like this." And without listening to his wife's objections, Kevin hurried off to work. But that's okay, Kate thought. 2 weeks can wait. And with a wave of her hand, she began to pack her suitcase. Wendy was very happy to see her daughter. "How long will you be staying with me?" she asked. "A week, maybe 2. A week." The mother asked fearfully. "Did you have a fight with your husband?" "No, he's away on a business trip." "What am I going to do in this place?" "So I came to you. Daughter, maybe you should go to work. You've always been so energetic, and you've been treated well at work. What, are you all in cahoots or something?" Kate couldn't take it anymore. "I can't work in my specialty now. It's been 6 years of new things. I have to start over. I have to start over. No, I don't want to. I don't have the desire." She turned her back to the window and remembered how her husband had insisted she get a job. "Kevin and I are going through a difficult time," she continued in a calmer voice. "He and I have been fighting a lot. He drives me to work. He gives me less money. He's controlling my every move. I need it." "What do you mean?" Wendy was surprised. "Do you want to leave him? I'm an idiot, running away from a pie like that. But he wants a divorce. Mom, who's that guy sweeping the yard?" "He's got unnatural hands, but he's got a great figure." Wendy went over to her daughter and looked out the window. "And that's Michael, our janitor. He's got one arm missing at the elbow, and the other one has only one finger. He's an invalid. He was an electrician. Something happened out there and blew his hands off. I don't know exactly. His wife kicked him out of the house. So he got a job with us as a janitor. He lives in the basement. There's a room set up for them. It's horrible. He's so young. Yes, I think he's about 25 years old. He gets a disability pension. I don't drink the janitor's wages. He's a good guy. He deserves to be happy. But Wendy showed you she probably knows best what to give to whom. You do whatever it takes to stay with Kevin. He's a wonderful man, kind, decent." The mother tried to translate the themes. Well, grinned the daughter. "And you are treated to resorts, send you." Kate looked at her mother snidely. "Why do you do that, Kate? Of course you should do that. Help me, come and visit me. But you don't. He spends all day in salons and bars, stirring up life. And marriage, by the way, is a good thing for the person you love. It gives life meaning. What could be better than 2 hearts in love?" "Mom, please, I'm begging you. These high-minded words are nauseating." Look, the girl rolled her eyes. "Kids, do you want Kate? Why don't you give your husband a son or a daughter?" "Well, it's not working out. And now I don't want to." She's been watching the janitor all this time. How he held the broom and bucket and marveled that a man could adapt to anything. The janitor really had a lot of work to do. Autumn was firmly in its rights, and a beautiful multicolored carpet of leaves adorned the yard, and the guy, apparently, was a creative person, made hearts out of leaves. But the wind picked them up and carried them away. Everybody needs hearts, even the wind. While Kate lived at her mother's house, she saw Michael with a broom every morning. They got to know each other. There wasn't much to talk about at first. Yeah, he didn't talk much. I'm more used to not talking. And if I do talk, it's only to myself. He was talking to Kate. She really wanted to see how this poor guy lived. And one day he bought a bottle of red wine, a cake, candy, and ready-made dumplings. She asked to visit him. The woman was ready to see anything, but she was met with a small 12-meter room clean, which surprised her very much. Plates, cups were stacked and covered with a clean towel. Who cleans for you? Kate asked. Myself. Who's going to clean for me? I can't pay. I make ends meet on my own, so I try to keep it clean. Every day I mop the floors, dust them. It doesn't take long and it's not hard at all. Looking at his pegs was certainly unpleasant. The rough red seams make him avert his eyes. He saw the woman's squeamish glances as well. But what could he change? Either she accepts him as he is or leaves. No third was possible. Kate tried to look into his bottomless brown eyes and not at his hands. They drank the bottle of wine. Or rather, Kate drank more. Michael had a couple of drinks and didn't want any more. When the bottle was finished, they got to talking. The next day, she couldn't even remember what they had talked and laughed about. She'd forgotten all about his mutilation. And when he kissed her, greedily roughly, but the kiss blew her head off. She felt a terrible sexual attraction to him and quickly stripped off her clothes and lay down on the couch. Kate was ecstatic, and having gotten the maximum pleasure, like a loved cat, went up to her mother's apartment and thought of Michael as the best man in her life. She was walking drunk with happiness and decided that tomorrow she would stay at his place all night. "Where have you been?" asked the worried mother, eyeing her daughter suspiciously. "Mom, you forget about me not 15, but 31. What are you asking me?" "I've been seeing girls." Molly came back from her honeymoon. She told me all sorts of interesting things. "Where have you been?" Okay. Go to bed." "Did you drink too much at Molly's?" In the morning, Wendy told her daughter that Kevin had called. He couldn't get her on the phone all night, and what he wanted. He said he'd be a couple days late. He said the site was being finished and he had to be there. "Good, I heard you," Kate said cheerfully. The daughter was missing every day. What could there be to do from day to day? All with the same mysterious human. A bad premonition kept Wendy in suspense. As soon as Kate saw through the window that Michael finished his work in the yard of the house, immediately packed up, and having warned her mother that she was spending the night at a friend's house, jumped out of the house in a bag that the woman had brought with her. There were groceries and a small bottle of wine so to loosen her tongue and feel more relaxed. "I'm staying at your place tonight. You don't mind?" "No, of course not. I'd be delighted." Toward morning, when they had calmed down, and Michael finally fell asleep, Kate lay on his chest and thought about how she hadn't even imagined 10 days ago that a man could give her such stunning sensations. She didn't pay any attention to his hands, or rather what was left of them after the tragedy. She just wanted to be near him, to feel him with her whole body. She woke up in the afternoon. She got home in the late afternoon. Wendy was very unhappy. "You're here to see your mother, and I don't even see you at home. At least you could have done the laundry in the apartment." "You know it's hard for me," sighed the mother. All right. I'll do it tomorrow morning. Now I'm going to bed. I'm tired." "Why do people get tired from work?" "And you, from doing nothing." "I'm ashamed to tell anyone." "So don't tell them. Why would anyone want to know how badly you raised me?" Kate laughed, and I didn't really care. But how did it go? The site was finished. Did you congratulate everyone? Deputy Kevin Nick was asking questions the whole way. It went as well as it could have. "Thanks for bringing in the lawyers. We got 2 great contracts. All in all, I'm happy with the way things are going. Just in time for the firm's anniversary, we can give everyone a bonus. People will be happy." Nick smiled. "And how are things going here?" Kevin asked. "The work is in order. Everything works like a well-oiled machine." Kevin looked at Nick, and it seemed to him that he was not telling something. "What's wrong with it?" "Just tell me. I don't know where to start." Nick mumbled. "Start at the beginning and preferably in order." "Okay, Kevin, you see, this is about your wife." Kevin stopped and looked at his friend carefully. "I don't know if you know that my mother-in-law lives next door to yours." At home next door. Yeah, I know we rode together once. But when I visited her, I saw your wife several times with a tall man. She's so happy. I thought the woman was glowing. One day I waited to see where she was going for the night. And you know, I wasn't surprised at all that she didn't go to her mother's house, but somewhere in the basement. I asked my mother-in-law what was in the basement, and she told me that Michael Fokin lives there, a handicapped janitor who had his hands blown off. That's who your Kate is having fun with. To say Kevin was surprised is an understatement. He was crushed and destroyed. Let's go, Kevin asked. A short time later, Nick's car was parked in front of Wendy's driveway. Kevin dialed his wife's number and said, "Hi, love, where are you?" "I'm at Molly's," answered a frightened Kate. "You're supposed to be here tomorrow." So I took the liberty of taking one last trip to visit her. "Okay, I'll pick you up in an hour. Give me the address." Barely containing his anger, Kevin said, "No, I'm on my way. I'll be home in half an hour." They saw how she jumped out of the basement, got into the car, and with a squeal of tires, the car flew out of the yard. Confident, Nick asked quietly, "Take me home." The car ride was silent. In the middle of the road, Kevin broke the silence for the first time. You know, sometimes it is madly desirable to have a woman who understands you from half a word, from half a look, and loved you not for $1 deposit in the bank. Just like that. With all her faults, he leaned against the cold car window and closed his eyes. Luck like that rarely smiles on anyone, friend. Nick concluded regretfully, "You're not lucky. Kate didn't make you happy." Doc met Kevin with a set of dark windows that stared back at him with unseeing eyes. "Go wait for her," she went to explain. Kevin grimaced as if he had eaten a sour lemon and, waving his hand somewhere, entered the entrance. The apartment was silent. His wife was nowhere to be found, and he realized that she had already fallen asleep. He was even glad of it. There was not yet the strength to put a bold end to the relationship. It would still have to leave. Became Kate so early that her husband was still asleep. She quickly wrote a note. "See you tonight. I'm going to work." She rushed off to her mother's. And Kevin, waking up and not finding his wife at home, began to pack her things himself. There were almost 4 suitcases, including a jewelry box. He didn't hesitate long, but put it in one of the suitcases. A janitor does not earn much, and these bling will help in a difficult moment. Pulling up to his mother-in-law's house, he picked up all the suitcases at once and rang the bell. The door was opened by Wendy. "Kevin, darling, come in. I'm so happy to see you. How about some coffee?" No thanks. I just dropped off Kate's things for a minute. I don't want to see her anymore. I'll file for divorce myself." My mother-in-law's eyes went black. She was shaking. But with the last of her strength, she asked, "What's wrong?" "She did something terrible, and you don't know anything." The son-in-law looked at his mother-in-law in surprise. No, looking into her eyes, he believed she didn't know what her daughter was doing. "Your daughter lives in the basement with the janitor." "Why would I want her after that?" "Yard janitor. I got dizzy, my legs gave out. And if it hadn't been for Kevin, she would have collapsed on the floor." Her hands started shaking so badly that Kevin got scared, called an ambulance, put her in bed, and called Katerina relentlessly. But to no avail. The ambulance took Wendy to the emergency room. She'd had a stroke. As he left, he slammed the door and decided to go down to the basement. The door was open, and the man saw the lovers kissing passionately. He stood there for a few seconds, then tapped on the jamb. When Kate was able to pull away from the young man, he continued, "Do you work here now? You should have seen the look on her face. Kevin, I know what you're about to tell me. It's not what I thought. But that's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm not going to drag you back to the house by force, but I don't want to be a rocket scientist either. That's why I brought the suitcases with your rags to your mother's house. In one of the suitcases is a jewelry box. I don't know if you'll need them in the cellar, but they're yours. Divorce, then you're on your own. I changed the lock on the apartment. There's nothing more for you to do there. One last thing. Wendy's in the hospital. She was taken by ambulance to the emergency room. That's how she reacted to our divorce. I couldn't reach you as usual. You're a busy girl. Now it's all advice. Love." Only now he looked at the man who had been silent and uninvolved in the whole conversation. As he turned around to leave, Kate rushed after him hysterically, shouting, "Kevin, but we have to talk. There's no point in explaining yourself. You should explain when you have the slightest chance of saving a relationship, when you value and care about someone. Otherwise, it's better to walk away. You don't think there was any reason for me to do that? No reason at all. It's just that you cheated on me with this man. You slept with him as my husband. And you know that very well. But still you're wide-eyed, shrugging your shoulders, pretending you don't understand why I'm rejecting you." He turned sharply to Michael and asked straight into his forehead, "Do you love me?" "I do," he replied. So much for blushing. It's good to see his wife, though formerly happy. And he went outside. Kevin decided to go to his mother's work and make her happy. What should have happened 7 years ago had finally happened. "And you have a wonderful husband," Michael said. After Kevin left, he's a man with poise, intelligence, a real man. I really respected him. Not everyone can do that, but that poise was only on the outside. Inside Kevin was raging ocean of emotions, terrible emotions, anger, hatred, and rage. These emotions were rushing his blood at such a speed that he couldn't even start the car right away, got behind the wheel. He felt the pressure in his chest, the dizziness and flying pain in his heart area. There was no shortage of more to come. To die from this fool. Kevin managed to think and pulled out a bottle of water. He drank, and the water poured down the face of his shirt chest, but he still didn't stop. It felt good to him to feel it already cool. The car stood still for another 15 minutes, and when Kevin finally came to his senses, the car slowly moved. He was on his way to the only woman in the world who would never, under any circumstances, fall out of love. That's Mom. They could quarrel, not talk for a while, but they couldn't live without each other for long. Kevin was raised by his mom. His father was too soft a man to raise a boy with Miranda's temperament. There was no doubt that she brought up a good man. Kevin began to work part-time early on. His mother insisted on it so that he knew the value of money and had less free time. He always had friends at home. Tried not to be annoying, but some time to take part in their conversations. Guys adored Miranda and came to her not just to talk, but for advice. That was the woman Kevin was going to see now. He was sure that she would support him. The pity is not about her. She would chop the truth from the womb, so that her son would not paint. She was glad when she saw him, of course. She understood everything from her eyes, but she didn't question him. She decided it was better to distract him from gloomy thoughts. He started the conversation. "Mom, Kate and I are getting a divorce. You know, my son has more reason to drink champagne now than your wedding ever did. You're good for doing this, aren't you?" She didn't even try to hide her joy. "You don't even ask me what the reason for our divorce is. Why would I? I don't think you'd be very happy if I started giving you that reason." Miranda understood perfectly well that her son was a handsome, well-off man, and there should be an elegant woman with a special charm and allure by his side. Smart, caring, loving, finally. Not that. She didn't even have a name for her in her head. She's a good girl, but she's got a rich, handsome man. That's the story you got yourself into, and you're well fucked. But you did well to give all the jewelry to her. That's the manly thing to do. But I'm afraid to ask, he didn't even let her finish. Mom, but of course he did. Why should she have our family jewelry? That night, he stayed the night at his parents' house. It's nice to go to Mom and Dad's once in a while and feel like there are people who will always understand and help you. And Kate stood in front of Michael, eyes still wide, not knowing what to do. "How did he find out about us?" she said out loud. "So you're worried about it now? Well, you're stupid. You just lost not just a husband, but a good man and a human being. But I found you. You got an answer for that, Kate. I can't provide for you, so you're gonna have to get a job tomorrow. I got it. My $60 pension tomorrow. A janitor's salary of $120 is enough for one. Of course, I realize I have to work. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to my mom's to take something to the hospital. Don't worry, there's enough there to last us a long time if we sell them a little at a time." That night, Kate went to her mother's apartment. She didn't want to stay with Michael, no matter how much he urged her. She cried all night. Only now did she realize what she had lost. Opening the jewelry box, Kate could not find the main necklace, which is passed down the female line of the family. Taken, for some reason, Kate wondered why he should have left it to me though, and I had failed to live up to his trust and turned out to be a real fringe. And the rut was very beautiful. The stones there were all real. In the very center, in the shape of a drop, the red ruby work had been done by an ancient game master. They played so well in the light that it was impossible to tear one's eyes away. Always at social functions, the attention was on this coworker. She remembered her janitorial duties and smiled. But Michael was my man, the one to look out for. Kevin was good too, of course, but Michael was unbeatable. It's okay, she told herself. I can do this. The only job she could get was at the market, selling Chinese and Turkish mathu. Every cell in her body ached to the bone by evening. Sometimes she had to carry the toots herself, and she had to fight to protect her merchandise. But tonight Michael was waiting for her. Now she could not love him until morning and sleep until dinner. So she had to deny him intimacy, saying that she was tired. He was very displeased, and once so much so that Kate was slapped and warned. If a man said it, it had to be done. From then on, she was obedient to her roommate. Kate and Kevin broke up quickly. No kids, no shared assets. So there was no reason to drag out the divorce. Once husband and wife met completely strangers. Kevin had no emotions at all, neither joy nor hatred. Just indifference. Kate's heart beat faster at the sight of her ex, but more from the guilt she felt. So having done this to a husband who certainly didn't deserve it, answering the judge's questions, she herself could no longer believe that she had lived 7 years without worry and sadness. It seemed like it was in another life. The only thing the man asked Kate when they left the court, already free of each other, was about Wendy. How is Mom feeling? Is she feeling better? Yeah, Mom's home now. That's good. I didn't expect a reaction like that, and I was afraid for her health. Does she miss you? She's asking, but she says she's not feeling well. Can I call her? Kevin said. Sure, call her. She'll be glad. If you don't hear her voice, she'll at least listen to you. And that was the end of it. It was as if the 7 years they had lived side by side had never happened. Everyone had their own lives now. Kate had a life full of worries about the house, her mother, her job, and Michael, who was also demanding attention. She was tired as hell, and every time she went to bed, she thought she wouldn't be able to get up at 600 and do the same lap again as yesterday, the day before, and posture the day before that. But no, she would get up and do everything she had to do on automatic. At night I sometimes cried, feeling sorry for myself, but I couldn't change anything. Kevin worked hard too. He wasn't going to change anything in his personal life. Today he had a hard day, so he was lying on the couch. A bottle of beer was in front of him, and he, smiling, was pulling up a tasty drink. The negotiations had gone well. We even managed to sign a contract on our own terms. It was an extra excuse to relax and unwind a bit. He liked to be alone with his thoughts, thinking, remembering moments like this. He was glad to be alone, and no one to rub in front of his eyes. But after only a short time, an unexpected meeting promised to change the bachelor's life. Kevin looked at the girl and couldn't exactly say he knew her. She had changed a lot in the years since they had seen each other. A pretty girl with a mop of auburns of their hair caught across her shoulders, she attracted the attention of men. Hello, Kevin. How long has it been since we've seen each other? Hearing the voice, he immediately remembered his friend Kate Helen. You, Helen. Are you? Kate, but a friend far away. We haven't been friends for a long time. I haven't seen her. 6 years. How is she? I don't know, good, I guess. She immediately took a step back and asked cautiously, Did you two split up, right? Without the slightest embarrassment, the man replied. And there are children. No, Kate was never able to give me an hair. Maybe it's for the best. Because children are very sensitive about their parents' divorce. Yes, Helen said sadly. They were standing on the footpath and were clearly in the way because they were being pushed and nagged to move away from the people who like to talk. Could let you down. Unexpectedly for yourself. Asked Kevin, Are you in no hurry? That'd be good. Because I live far away and I just work nearby. Well, let's go. There's my car. Helen, without realizing it, was glad Kevin was free. Kate had always been unworthy of such a man, hanging around his neck like a rock and just pulling money from him. Couldn't even bear children for such a handsome man. And where does Kate live now? At Wendy's? Where else would she live? And what about you, Helen? Kevin asked. I got married, had a little girl, a beautiful, smart girl, and separated successfully. My husband was drinking. I was afraid he'd scare the baby. I thought I would always find a man. And the child's health is very important. So I suggested he disappear from my life. He took it literally. And for a year and a half now, I haven't heard a peep from him. He doesn't pay child support, but he doesn't show his nose. We don't miss him, you know. Kevin looked at Helen, telling about his life. She dreamed her eyes were burning. Apparently, this topic was still painful for her. So they drove home. Thank you, Kevin, for the ride. She felt that he was about to leave, and she might never see him again. It gave her courage. Kevin, why don't we call sometime? Why don't we do that? Here's my card. And he handed her a business card on gold paper. She felt like her whole outfit was worth less than Kevin's card. No, Kevin, I'm not calling myself, and she handed him the business card back. Here's my phone number, she wrote down on a piece of paper, if you'd like it. It was nice to meet you. Thanks for the ride. Helen, are you offended? No, I just don't want to impose. And she quickened her pace. The tires felt good, and the car went quietly. Helen had changed for the better. I thought, Kevin, how old is she? Kate had told him once that she was 3 years younger than she was, so 30 is a good age, especially since she'd never make it that far. There was a corporate party coming up in a week. He didn't want to go alone, so he decided to call Helen. Helen, how would you like me to invite you to the party? I'm single, you're divorced too. The woman was silent. I could tell she was confused. No, why would it be a corporate party? Are you trying to arrange a viewing? Her voice trembled. She was also afraid because she had nothing to wear. She and her daughter lived very modestly. There was no alimony. Although her salary was decent, she didn't have enough for an outfit that would take her to a fancy restaurant. She immediately felt like a duck in someone else's pond and didn't want to wait for the beautiful swans to catch her. I'll be honest with you, Kevin. I don't have the right outfit to stand next to you. So let's go out and get one. No problem. But the girl took it as an insult. I'm not a kept woman. I live modestly but honestly. I really don't care what you wear. The saying, Kevin, you are beautiful, and I know that any outfit on you will be good. Kevin, it's not me I'm gonna feel bad for, it's you. The CEO of a construction firm came in with a point like that. Anyone would be happy to go with you. But then, not any, stretched Kevin. Here, for example, I call you and you do not want. Yes, I'm in favor. He immediately interrupted her. Don't worry about me. I have a reputation that should have been ruined a long time ago. Helen didn't say anything. All right, he said immediately. Excuse me for being so pushy about inviting you to the evening? No, I'll go. Helen agreed. I'll go. I'll wear what I have. Well, good for you. I'll pick you up at 7:00. And they said goodbye all evening in their very modest closet and chose one dress, a little black dress. A friend stood it for her. On the appointed day, Helen came out of the entrance at exactly 19:00. Kevin was already waiting and, opening the car door, gestured for her to get in. He drove his car confidently. It was huge, more like a tank. His hands rested calmly on the steering wheel, and he kept his eyes on the road. But Helen was nervous and already 100 times regretted that she had agreed to this adventure. After all, there was a perfect excuse to refuse, but she didn't use it. Helen could barely contain herself from jumping out of the car. I wonder if they all have such cars, thought the woman. She was rubbing a string of pearls, which she decided to liven up her black dress with. Nick has one here, said Kevin, driving up to the restaurant. Nick is the one who was a witness at the wedding. That's right, the man replied with a smile. Kevin and Helen walked into the lobby of the restaurant. Employees began to greet the man, not paying attention to his companion. The last to approach was Nick, who smiled welcomingly and recognized Helen immediately. A witness at Kevin's wedding on the bride's side. I remember correctly. Only now the tension had eased a little. But even after that, she regretted coming to this party where she had been ignored not only as Kevin's date, but she still couldn't find the words, but she thought she looked very pathetic. Everyone was talking to Kevin. Someone was kissing him on the cheek. He was introducing her to his coworkers, but she felt so sick she wanted to fall through the ground. What did you expect? Whispering your heart out to her? That everyone would fall down in front of you and kiss your hands. Look at all the women around him. After that, they danced, ate, drank. The people were drunk. Did the atmosphere become relaxed, or did she feel freer? A week later, Kevin was able to call Helen. They arranged to meet again. I can't tell you why Kevin was the one who flashed in front of my eyes out of the many girls and women. He chose me. I'm not really interested, but I'm grateful. Is that what she was thinking when she went on her date? She didn't expect anything from these meetings, and she didn't hope for anything. Helen thought that she was no match for such a man. They were too far apart on the social ladder. At the meeting, the man behaved simply. Kind of casually put his arm around her shoulder or took her hand. The feeling of his warm hand. Helen had such a shock that her breath stopped. And when they sat on the bench, too close to each other, Helen, as a 15-year-old girl, almost blew her mind. It's been a long time since I've had a man, she thought sadly. And if the touch of a hand makes me hot. And her hot temper was capable of pulling him out of that deep hole called depression. Lately, Kevin was surrounded by problems, meetings, negotiations, as it usually happens after the weekend. A lot of issues piling up that needed to be dealt with. As soon as he got some respite, he thought about Helen and how to meet her. He managed to talk to her a couple times on the phone. And now finally, it's Friday. And it was time to get the rest of the week off. He called her at exactly 6:00 p.m. and asked her out. Kevin, I can't. Alex has the cold again. I just got home from work and let my mom go, so we can't have a date. But I feel guilty. So I'm going to make you an offer, if you want to, of course. Come over to my house. I'll cook dinner while I feed you. And she laughed a shifting laugh. Kevin, on the other hand, was pleased. I'd love to. In about 40 minutes, and pointed my car toward the mall. Bought a huge doll for the baby. Then wine, candy, cake, picked up some groceries. And when he rang the doorbell, when he opened it, Helen didn't see Kevin, and his daughter asked fearfully, Mom, who's that? Let me help you. And she took from his hands the largest box with a doll, and immediately saw the satisfied face of the guest. Hello. And he kissed her gently on the cheek, smelled her perfume, and looked into her eyes. And she was beautiful. Just the eyes, the sad lashes, the spread, and the lips. I never paid attention to her lips. They're juicy and plump, like she's been kissing someone passionately. Oh my God. My mind goes to the wrong place when she gets this close. My body reacts instantly to this closeness. All I need now is to get excited like a young student, thought Kevin, sorting through the package. The little girl stood with her head up and watched the big uncle. And your Uncle Sam. No, baby, I'm Uncle Kevin. And he got down on one knee to be closer to the child. I bought you a present. And when he took out the doll, it was a little shorter than the girl. Wow, she splashed her hands. She's alive and her hair is real. Thank you, Uncle Kevin. And she put her arms around his neck. She was so small and thin that the man was afraid she'd break something. You're welcome. Baby, you tell me what you're gonna name her later. Okay. Alex said okay and ran to her room to play with her new doll. Kevin, thank you for the presents. I feel bad. I have all just potatoes, meat, salad, and you bought so many specialties. And she took out a bag of red fish, caviar, shrimp. She had a lot of you and a lot of you, until the whole table was piled with purchases. The woman looked at him gratefully and hugged him. Then there was dinner. Alex hurried to her Anna. That's how she called the doll, so she didn't stall, but quickly ate everything that was on the plate. And they were left alone drinking wine and talking. Kevin praised her meat, and he felt good in this house. I'm closer now, there's no one here with you. I feel good here with you. She felt the same way, but was in no hurry to say it out loud. Helen, move in with me and my daughter. Suddenly a man suggested it. Kevin, it's kind of sudden, so I don't think it's serious. Think about it, you need me. It's one thing to want, another to respect, and another to love. There was at least one of those things when you asked me to move in with you. Which came first? She felt tears coming out of her eyes. He fixed her hair with a heel that was out of place, passed it between his fingers, pulled her to him, and covered her lips with a kiss. And she wrapped her arms around him and thought how long she dreamed of this. After the kiss, he was more serious than ever. Now in front of Helen was not a friend, but the CEO Kevin, who always takes what he started to the logical end. And I feel that you and my woman, and we will be fine. I took my divorce from my husband very hard. I won't go through that kind of shock again. I'm just an ordinary weak woman. Well, I wouldn't say that, Kevin grinned. You don't even know how strong you are. Raising a daughter by yourself. You're a great hostess, a great mother. I'll be your rock. Move in with me. No, but he didn't let her finish. Helen, I've fallen in love, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I don't want to be a roommate. I want to be a husband, and I want you to be my wife. Kevin liked Kevin, but for some reason she was slow to answer what she was afraid of. Any woman waits for such proposals, and Helen would never have thought that these words of a man could mortify her. Perhaps it was frightening her. A man's attitude towards a child is good for now, and then, what if he doesn't love it? She won't tolerate that, which means divorce again. She's used to living alone for so many years, being her own mistress and her own desires. And now she has to reckon with one more person. And not always their desires and views will coincide. And then will she be able to walk in where everything smells like the previous wife and lie in the same bed where Kate lay? No, she can't. She knows that for a fact. Alex gets sick a lot. Will her future husband like it that she has to be on sick leave a lot? I need all that. Helen's been asking herself questions. One argument is that I've liked him for a long time. Versus, why would I want to do that? Helen, you've been thinking about my proposal for a long time, and with every second, I'm losing confidence that the answer will be positive. She looked at him with the same sad eyes and did not know how to tell him about her doubts, whether he would understand her heart. It hurts if her head cracks and she doesn't know where to put her hands. They're obviously unnecessary. Lord, help me get out of this without offending Kevin. Look, she started. This is a very serious step and I need to think about it. I have a child and I have to think about her. No offense, but a good man is hard to find. It's almost impossible to find a father for someone else's child. The dads around here don't want daughters. I'm afraid you'll regret it in 6 months. Or maybe sooner you'll regret your step, but because of your decency you'll keep quiet and put up with us. I can't do that. It's stressful again. Only now it's stressful for the baby. Let's not be rash. There's nothing wrong with a bouquet on a particular courtship. Alex will get used to you a little bit. As soon as I feel ready to trust you, and most importantly trust my daughter, I've got your life on my hands. And she exhaled. She was relieved that she could calmly say everything to Kevin. I understand you, I'm going home. And he slammed the door after saying goodbye. He won't come again, Helen thought and cried. Helen's answer puzzled Kevin, but did not offend him. The feeling of dissatisfaction never left him. Not his brain, not his body, they had gotten the release they wanted. What he, Helen wanted, there was no doubt. He could feel that she liked it too. But apparently it wasn't enough for now. Kevin had been quite cautious about talking about his love for women, but if you don't count kindergarten and elementary school. So when he told Kate, and now Helen, that he loved her, he was taking responsibility for his words. She's so gentle, homely in that apron with Chumamo. There is nothing predatory or greedy about her. He felt that with Helen the affair was not going to work out with her either seriously or not at all. He needs to get married for real. He needs a family, kids. If there's a lot of them, he won't mind. He is not lazy, and his family will always be able to provide and protect. So Kevin was not going to retreat. Just need to think about how to proceed, and it would be better if it was a weekend to take the child with him. Yes, it would be the right thing to do. That little girl should know that Uncle Kevin would never hurt her. And he's not going to rush Helen into intimacy. And he was right not to spend the night. After all, he'd fallen out, and that was justifiable and a reason to stay. But being with this woman in the same apartment, everything would have ended predictably, and there was no telling how their relationship would work out after that. Tomorrow, he would call and invite all the couples. Alex could go for a bike ride, and he stopped abruptly. "We have to buy a bicycle for the girl." And he again directed the car to the shopping center. When the means of transportation was lying in the trunk, he gained weight again. "Are you still asleep?" "Alex has already laid down, and I'm drinking tea. I'm inviting the girls to the children's park tomorrow. Alex, I bought a bicycle. We'll have fun." She didn't even try to hide how much she liked the idea. "Thank you, Kevin. You've brought us happiness. My daughter will be delighted with your idea." Alex felt perfectly happy. She lived with her mom and, well, let it not be Dad, but after all, the children who meet them did not know it. Therefore, the girl was proud that her hand was sinking in the huge, warm hand of Uncle Kevin. She saw the boy being lifted up by his dad and placed on his shoulders, and he looked down at Alex with a sense of superiority. "Uncle Kevin, I want to do that too." And she pointed her finger at the boy who was making faces at her. Helen had no time to scold her daughter before she was on top. And since Kevin was taller than the man on whose neck the boy was sitting, Alex was even taller, she put her nose up and held the man's face with her palms. Whispered in his ear, "Thank you for your health." The baby engulfed him, and as he steamed, he felt a rush of energy. He felt happy. He had grown attached to the girl, and she too was waiting for him every time. At the sight of Alex, lights lit up in his eyes, his gaze warmed, and he was satisfied with the time he spent with her. I chose the right tactic. Kevin was sincerely happy for himself. New Year's Eve was approaching, and they were already planning where and how they would celebrate it. The day before, Kevin had brought a huge Christmas tree, which they all decorated together. The time was late. Alex was asleep, and Kevin got ready, hugging him. Helen said, "Stay here tonight. I want to be with you." "Are you sure you do?" "I am now." It made him feel good to hear that. And he didn't have to be persuaded. He'd been waiting for it. His whole body responded to her call. Finally, there was no need to restrain himself. This was their true intimacy, when you could speak and declare your love without fear of being misunderstood. It was just that they both loved. She hadn't even remembered how long it had been since then, and he not long ago. But they were both overwhelmed with feelings, and words of love just spilled out of them. And there was no need to be afraid of that. She could hear the heartbeat of the man she loved. And he listened to the beating of her heart, and they beat in unison. That's why they were so happy. On January 2nd, Kevin's parents were waiting for them. Helen baked a cake. She didn't want to buy one. She wanted to make her future mother-in-law happy, especially since her cakes were excellent. As soon as they entered the apartment, Alex, seeing Miranda, walked over and immediately asked, "Are you my grandmother now?" "Of course I am. You have no idea what a joy it is. I like Grandma a lot. Merry Christmas, Miranda. This is a birthday cake for you and James. Alex and I baked it for you." Miranda was delighted so simply and sincerely. She was very happy for her son. And Kevin did not look at his mother and was even afraid to meet her gaze. He did not want to spoil the mood for himself and his beloved woman. The evening was wonderful, but her daughter sniffled. "Too many impressions in one day. We'll go. Thank you so much for such a lovely evening," Helen said, and went to dress her daughter, closing the door behind the guests. Miranda held Kevin for a moment. "That's her, son. Now I am calm for you." He pulled his mother close to him and kissed her cheek, whispering thank you. A year had passed since then. Kate decided to come to the house where she used to live, a 20-story building. Rich people lived there. It met her clean and painted benches, a cozy playground, and old ladies walking with their grandchildren. Suddenly, the door opened and a young woman with a girl came out. Kate recognized her immediately. It was her former friend Helen. Behind her was Kevin with a stroller. The woman was seething inside. She looked from afar at these happy people. They had everything: love, money, kids. What did she have? Nothing. She'd ruined it all. But she was sure of one thing. If it wasn't for that bitch knowing Helen, Kate would have easily gotten Kevin back today. After all, he'd loved her so much once.